today, the lawyers are outlining their strategy for Mr. Trump's impeachment trial in the Senate. That kicks off, of course, in less than 24 hours. And the first order of business is deciding the rules for the proceedings.
Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader in the Senate, is a staunch defender of Donald Trump, and he'll try, of course, to get the most favourable terms possible for the president. The Chief Justice of the United States, John Roberts, will preside over the trial, but it's not clear how much he will actually dictate for the process. For the Democrats, 7 House members will make up the prosecution team, and they will argue that Mr. Trump, now impeached, should be removed from office.
The jury is the Senate itself, 47 Democrats and independents and 53 Republicans. And for the president to be removed from office, 2/3 of those senators, 67 of them, will have to vote in favour. Let's speak now to Elizabeth Wydra. She is the lawyer and president of the Constitutional Accountability Centre. Elizabeth, thanks very much for joining us. This argument that the president's lawyers have outlined just today in this legal brief, that impeaching the president, removing the president from office because of this would weaken the presidency. How does that fly in constitutional law terms?
Well, the idea of impeachment and removal as a constitutional remedy has obviously been in our Constitution since the birth of our nation. And the idea that it would weaken the presidency to remove a president according to constitutional process for egregious abuse of his office of the presidency, you know, is a really hard argument to make when you could think that, to the contrary, removing a president for such egregious corrupt abuse of his office and then obstructing a co-equal branch of government in its constitutional oversight duty, that's actually going to make the nation stronger, make our enduring Constitution stronger, and ultimately make the presidency stronger.
So just to remind our viewers, the 2 charges are abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. And it seems there's some confusion, even amongst the president's own legal team, about whether those would amount to reasons for removing him from office. Listen to Alan Dershowitz, who's on the president's legal team, the law professor. This is what he said just yesterday.
You have a lot of evidence, disputed evidence, could go both ways, but the vote was to impeach on abuse of power, which is not within the constitutional criteria for impeachment, and obstruction of Congress.
But here is Mr. Dershowitz during the impeachment trial of Bill Clinton back in 1998.
It certainly doesn't have to be a crime. If you have somebody who completely corrupts the office of president and who abuses trust and who poses great danger to our liberty, you don't need a technical crime.
So which is it, Elizabeth? Does this amount to a reason to remove him from office, or doesn't it? Or do we just not know?
Yes. No, it absolutely does. And you don't have to listen to Alan Dershowitz back during the Clinton impeachment trial. You can go back to Alexander Hamilton at the founding and the Federalist Papers. He made clear that a reason for impeachment and removal would be abuse or violation of public trust. And so the fact that that is one of the articles of impeachment that has been passed against Donald Trump was also in the articles of impeachment against President Nixon. You know, that is exactly why you have the impeachment remedy in the Constitution, is when a president goes so far beyond what is acceptable in the political rough and tumble of life, something that is such a constitutional violation that you abuse the public trust, you violate the public trust, you violate your oath of office. That's where impeachment really does come in. So it's not only an acceptable form of impeachment, it's arguably perhaps the most valid ground of impeachment when you look at it from a constitutional perspective, and not just from the political perspective that you're seeing perhaps through that hypocrisy we've seen from some of the president's legal team.
Elizabeth, it sounds like impeachment is one of the most serious things that can happen under the Constitution. Is there a comprehensive rule book somewhere that defines the rules for the trial, or are senators, like the rest of us in life, making it up as they go along?
Well, there are certain things that are very clear from the Constitution. You know, it's the House that basically passes the indictment here, that it impeaches, the articles of impeachment. That's what we've already seen pass in the House. And then the Constitution makes clear that it's the Senate's duty to conduct the trial, with the Chief Justice of the United States, here Chief Justice Roberts, presiding over that trial. Now, beyond that, It's a matter of Senate rules and customs. And we don't know exactly what the contours of this trial in the Senate will look like, beyond the fact that, we know that the Chief Justice will be presiding, and we know that the American people want this to be a fair trial. And so there are going to be contentious questions beginning tomorrow about witnesses and evidence. And that's going to be something that the senators will have to hash out. And there's a lot of pressure on them to get that evidence because, like I said, while there aren't clear rules, perhaps, when you talk about what does a fair trial mean, we have some idea of that. There's a judge, there's witnesses, there's evidence. And so to the extent that this proceeding deviates from that idea of a fair trial, I think there's going to be quite a bit of dissatisfaction, and rightfully so.
Okay, Elizabeth Wydra, thank you very much for joining us. One other thing that has changed, by the way, is the makeup of the people who are actually going to be prosecuting the president. There are 7 Democrats. They come from all over the country. You can see they are a pretty diverse group. 3 of them are women. This is a very different look to the management team than back in 1998 during Bill Clinton's impeachment. Back then,
spot the difference.
It was 13 white men who were impeaching the president. That is how America has changed, and how the Democratic Party as well, I think, is different from the Republican Party.